Welcome to our History Now podcast.
Thank you. It's really great to be here.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. So, I want to start by asking you, the listener, to just imagine something for a second. Imagine waking up tomorrow and you find out the city is going to pour, I don't know, thousands of tons of concrete directly over your living room.
Right, and your kid's school.
Exactly, your kid's school, your favorite local grocery store, your church. For over 1 million Americans in the 1950s, that wasn't, some hypothetical fear. It was just reality. It was the birth of the interstate highway system.
Yeah, and we're universally taught, in school that the 1956 U.S. Federal Highway Act was this absolute marvel.
Total triumph of modern American engineering.
Right, a triumph of progress that connected the country. But for Black America, that exact same project actually ushered in this era of state-sanctioned destruction.
State-sanctioned destruction. That's exactly it. And that brings us to our mission for this conversation today. We're going to be unpacking how urban planning, infrastructure, and, local politics have historically been weaponized.
Weaponized to erase thriving Black communities.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll examine the modern reckoning that's actually happening right now. So for you listening, this is a look into the concrete scars running through our own backyards.
Yeah, because we were talking about those massive highways and, sprawling medical districts that you probably pass every single day.
Right, entirely unaware of the thriving communities that are literally buried right beneath them.
The sheer scale of the displacement, it's something most people cannot fathom until they actually look at the numbers.
The numbers are staggering.
They really are. I mean, the Federal Highway Act of 1956, that alone resulted in over 1 million people losing their homes. And that was just in the first 2 decades of construction.
1 million people.
Uprooted. Just completely uprooted.
Wow. I want to ground that massive number in a specific place for a second because the routing of these highways wasn't random, right?
No, not at all.
Like you might think of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and immediately recall the tragic 1921 race massacre.
Right, where a white mob burned down the Greenwood district.
Yeah, the area famously known as Black Wall Street. And, thankfully that horrific event is finally getting the historical recognition it deserves.
Definitely.
But there's a second chapter to that story that is almost completely ignored. The people of Greenwood actually rebuilt their community.
They did.
They brought Black Wall Street back to life from the ashes. It was incredible.
And that remarkable resilience was rewarded with a bulldozer 50 years later.
It's heartbreaking.
In 1971, city planners routed Interstate 244 and US 75 directly through the geographic center of Greenwood.
Right through the middle.
Right through. They essentially finished the job the 1921 mob started, They permanently destroyed the commercial heart of the neighborhood.
But, you might be thinking, well, what if a neighborhood had the money and the political savvy to fight back?
Right. Surely wealth protects you.
Right. Well, the highway planners had an answer for that, too. And we saw it play out really vividly on the West Coast. Like, let's look at Los Angeles.
Oh, LA is a perfect example.
You had white, affluent neighborhoods, places like Beverly Hills or Laurel Canyon.
Yeah.
When planners suggested putting a freeway through those areas, the residents formed neighborhood associations, hired lawyers, and they successfully kept the concrete out of their backyards.
But meanwhile, you look at the 135-acre East LA interchange, which, by the way, is still one of the busiest in the entire country.
Oh, yeah, it's massive.
It pushed out at least 10,000 people in Boyle Heights, which was this densely populated, multi-ethnic and Mexican community.
10,000 people.
Yes. But let's look at the wealth question specifically, because South Los Angeles was home to a wealthy, well-off Black neighborhood called Sugar Hill. This is a place where affluent Black professionals, actors, doctors, they owned these beautiful mansions.
So they had money.
They had a lot of money. And they fought the city tooth and nail using the courts. But they were ultimately just crushed by eminent domain to make way for the I-10 freeway.
Wait, stop right there. For anyone who, hasn't dealt with city planning or property law, what exactly is the mechanism of eminent domain in this context?
Good question.
Like, how does the government just override property owners who have the money to actually fight them?
Well, eminent domain is a legal doctrine that allows the government to seize private property for public use.
Quote unquote public use.
Exactly, like building a highway, as long as they provide what they define as just compensation.
So the government sets the price.
The mechanism works because the government holds the ultimate trump card. They aren't asking to buy your house. They are condemning your land. and telling you what they will pay for it. So even though the residents of Sugar Hill had money, they lacked the institutional political power to sway the city council or the highway commission to choose an alternate route.
That is just, it's wild.
And it didn't stop there. To finish the I-10 by the Pacific Ocean, engineers also leveled the Pico neighborhood in Santa Monica.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, displacing pockets of Black, Mexican, and Japanese residents who simply couldn't stop the state's legal machinery.
New Orleans offers another heartbreaking example of this machinery at work, actually.
Oh, Claiborne Avenue.
Yes, Claiborne Avenue. It wasn't just a street. It was the absolute center of Black commerce and culture. It was lined with these beautiful, towering oak trees and served as the historic home to Black Mardi Gras.
It was a beautiful area.
It was. But under the guise of progress, it was decimated to build the elevated I-10 Claiborne Expressway.
Yeah.
They ripped out the oaks, destroyed 500 homes, and plunged a vibrant business district into basically permanent concrete shadow.
And what's crazy is that Robert Moses, the famously ruthless infrastructure planner, he actually proposed 2 major highway projects for New Orleans during that era.
Right.
One was for Claiborne Avenue. The other was intended to run straight through the French Quarter, which, was a mostly white historic neighborhood.
I can guess how that went.
You'd be right.
Yeah.
The well-connected residents of the French Quarter organized and easily blocked their highway.
Of course they did.
But the residents around Claiborne Avenue, they didn't even get the dignity of a public hearing. The bulldozers just showed up in 1966.
How did planners continually justify this? Honestly, it feels like a rigged game of Monopoly to me.
That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah, if I'm the government and I want to build a shortcut across the board, I just force one specific player to sell all their properties for pennies while ignoring the wealthy players on the other side of the board entirely.
That monopoly analogy captures the mechanics perfectly, and it all traces back to redlining.
Right, the maps.
Because banks and the federal government systematically denied mortgages and investments to Black neighborhoods, those areas were officially designated as blighted or slums on city maps.
Just a completely manufactured label.
Exactly. But because of that blight label, property appraisers value the land at rock-bottom prices.
Oh, I see.
So when highway planners needed to justify routing a massive project through a city, they pointed to the map and argued that going through Black communities was the most cost-effective option.
Wow.
The land was technically the cheapest for the government to buy through eminent domain.
So wait, the city starves the neighborhood of resources, labels the resulting struggle as a slum, and then uses that label as an excuse to steal the land for cheap.
That's exactly how it works.
It's like a surgeon claiming they're saving a patient by deliberately cutting out their heart,
Yeah.
Just using the surgery as a convenient cover for theft.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was just a way to clear out prime real estate and replace it with easy commute routes for predominantly white suburbanites.
The planners weaponized the poverty that the government itself created. It's truly insidious.
Let's zoom into one specific footprint to really understand how relentless these waves of displacement were.
Okay, let's do it.
We're moving from the national highway boom to a multi-generational case study in Portland, Oregon. There was a vibrant area that we will refer to as the northeast neighborhood.
Right.
And this community story, it doesn't actually start with a bulldozer. It starts with a flood.
Yes, the 1948 Vanport flood. So during World War II, a massive influx of shipyard workers moved to Portland.
Right, for the war effort.
Exactly. And because of intense, strictly enforced housing discrimination, many Black workers were forced into Vanport, which was a hastily built public housing complex situated dangerously on a floodplain.
Which is just a disaster waiting to happen.
And it did.
Yeah.
When the Columbia River flooded in 1948, it literally wiped the city off the map, displacing 18,000 people.
Gosh.
And a quarter of them were Black.
So you have thousands of Black families suddenly homeless. And because redlining is still aggressively enforced in Portland at this time, they can't just buy a house anywhere, right?
Right. Their options are severely restricted.
They are cordoned off and forced into a tiny, economically depressed area, the northeast neighborhood. Banks routinely deny them mortgages and loans to improve their properties.
Standard redlining practices.
Right. But despite all of that oppression, the residents actually build a thriving cultural center. They create this Harlem on the Willamette.
Yeah, the cultural output was phenomenal. You had bustling Black-owned businesses. You had the Williams Avenue YWCA, where the Oregon Federation of Colored Women hosted scholarship teas and community events.
Wow.
You had the Bethel AME Church acting as a huge community cornerstone, hosting formal dinners and organizing civic action.
And then the urban planners arrive.
Always.
And they don't just strike once. They target the northeast neighborhood in 3 distinct waves of state-sponsored destruction.
3 waves.
Wave 1 hits in the 1950s. The city needs a place to build the Memorial Coliseum.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah. They originally planned to put it in Delta Park or downtown, but white residents mobilize and block it.
Just like Beverly Hills.
Just like Beverly Hills. So they pivot, and they drop it right into the northeast neighborhood, leveling 450 homes.
The community absorbs that blow, somehow. But Wave 2 follows right after in the 1960s.
Just a decade later.
Planners route the Minnesota Freeway, which we now know as Interstate 5, directly through the center of the neighborhood.
Unbelievable.
It physically slices the community in half, severing the walking paths to local commerce and forcing countless African-American business owners to either relocate or just shut down permanently.
I have to stop you there. I can wrap my head around, well, one catastrophic infrastructure project in the 50s, like maybe planners were careless or they took the path of least political resistance.
Sure.
But a second one in the 60s, and then, as we're about to discuss, a third wipeout in the 70s.
Yeah, it's hard to justify.
How does a city justify tearing up the exact same neighborhood 3 separate times? I mean, at a certain point, that ceases to be an accident.
Oh, it completely ceases to be an accident. It becomes a clear demonstration of targeted strikes.
Exactly.
The final blow you mentioned came in the 1970s with the Emmanuel Hospital expansion. The city gave residents of the northeast neighborhood just 90 days.
90 days.
Just 90 days to pack up their entire lives and leave. They razed 200 properties, displacing 3,000 people.
My God.
That was half the local neighborhood's population just scattered to the wind.
And okay, the most infuriating part of the hospital expansion to me is that the buildings didn't even go up.
Right?
The homes were demolished and then nothing happened. The land just became vacant lots. How does a massive expansion project clear out half a neighborhood and then just stop?
This is a devastating quirk of how those urban renewal grants operated back then.
How so?
Cities would apply for massive federal funding to do these quote-unquote revitalization projects. They would use eminent domain to seize and clear the land first, acting on the promise of that federal money.
Like counting your chickens before they hatch.
Exactly. But in the case of Emmanuel Hospital, the federal funding was abruptly pulled after the land was cleared.
You're kidding.
Often due to shifting political winds or budget cuts in Washington. The city couldn't afford to build the expansion without the federal dollars, but they had already bulldozed the homes.
That is just...
The destruction of generational wealth was absolute. Families who could have passed down homes to their children had that equity completely stripped away, leaving only empty dirt.
This brings us to a much broader realization, I think. We aren't just talking about concrete and property lines here. We are talking about the exercise of raw authority without the consent of Black citizens.
Yes, that is the core issue.
It's a pattern that really defines the relationship between our communities and government power. Black Texans recently made an incredibly insightful comparison regarding international power dynamics.
Oh, about Venezuela.
Yes. When the sitting president of Venezuela was controversially removed from power, the international community was completely shocked. The headlines were full of outrage asking, how could a leader be removed without a vote?
Right.
But for Black America, we recognized the pattern instantly.
The shock just wasn't there for Black communities, particularly in Texas. I mean, the scale in Venezuela was global, obviously, but the logic was deeply local.
Exactly.
It is the lived experience of authority acting first, displacing people, and offering an explanation long after the damage is already done.
Because Black Texans have lived through decades of decisions made without their consent, always wrapped up in that, sterile language of policy or public interest.
Oh, definitely.
Look at Houston. Interstate 45 tore right through historically Black communities like Independence Heights and the Fifth Ward. Homeowners weren't asked for their permission.
No, they never are.
The plans were drawn in a room they weren't allowed into, the bulldozers came, and the public interest was served at their expense.
And this tactic, it has evolved. It extends far beyond highways today. Look at political maps. Gerrymandering in Texas has been used to surgically dilute Black and Latino voting power.
Wait, how exactly do you steal a vote without actually throwing away a ballot? Break that down for us.
Yeah, you slice the map.
Slice the map.
Yeah. If you have a densely populated Black neighborhood that reliably votes together, lawmakers will draw district lines that fracture that neighborhood into 3 separate districts.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly, that cohesive voting bloc is absorbed into 3 larger, predominantly white districts. Their influence is neutralized by design.
And it's all perfectly legal.
Completely legal. No one get turned away from the voting booth, but the outcome is controlled before Election Day even arrives.
That evolution is terrifying. It's not always bulldozers anymore. Sometimes it's maps, sometimes it's court rulings, and sometimes it's school boards.
Those school boards.
Look at the 2021 state takeover of the Houston Independent School District. The state government simply removed local authority from one of the most diverse school districts in the nation.
Right.
Parents, teachers, voters, they were completely sidelined without a citywide vote or a referendum. Just raw action from the top down.
We also see it in environmental zoning, too. In Houston, zoning laws have conveniently clustered heavy polluting industries right next to Black residential communities.
Yeah.
As a result, you see tragic cancer clusters in places like Kashmir Gardens. That doesn't happen by accident.
No.
Those are deliberate decisions made in boardrooms, prioritizing industrial profit over Black health. The communities are only informed after the toxic facilities are built and the harm is already being done. This forces us to ask a fundamental question about the true nature of democracy.
Which is what? What's the question?
Democracy isn't just the physical act of casting a ballot. It is about whether that vote actually carries any weight when those in power decide to execute their plans.
Oh, that's heavy.
If a community can vote, but their elected school board is dissolved, or their neighborhood is rezoned for toxic waste, or their homes are seized for a highway, despite their protests, does their vote truly matter?
It's the illusion of a choice.
Exactly. That is the question Black communities have been asking for generations. Who decides? Who benefits? And who is treated as expendable?
So what does this mean for us today? Because we're standing at a very strange crossroads right now.
We really are.
The interstates that were built in the 1960s, the ones that ripped our communities apart, they're physically crumbling.
They have reached the end of their usable engineering life.
Right. So cities are facing a monumental choice. Do we rebuild these racist monuments or do we tear them down?
It is a massive opportunity to correct past wrongs, definitely. But it presents a brand new, highly complex danger.
Okay, what do you mean?
Well, let's look at Syracuse, New York, and the Interstate 81 viaduct. This is the highway that originally destroyed the historic Black 15th Ward. Today, that elevated viaduct is physically obsolete. It drops concrete dust into the community, causes severe noise pollution, and is linked to devastatingly high asthma rates and lead exposure.
And the people suffering the most from that infrastructure are the children.
Sadly, yes.
Dr. King Elementary School sits right in the literal shadow of that highway. The students there are breathing in terrible air quality every single day, putting their physical health and cognitive development at severe risk.
But there's finally a movement to tear it down. The Biden administration's $2 billion infrastructure plan is actively supporting the removal of the Syracuse viaduct to build a walkable community grid.
A community grid.
Yeah, the goal is to stitch the east and west side neighborhoods back together.
Okay, so on paper, that sounds like a victory, right? Tear down the concrete barrier, plant some trees, clean up the air.
Sounds great.
But there is a massive sense of dread in that community, and they have every right to be terrified.
Because of gentrification.
Exactly. Because if you remove the highway and make the neighborhood highly desirable again, property values are going to shoot up, which introduces the threat of gentrification.
And the mechanics of gentrification often outpace the actual construction.
Oh, easily.
It happens before the first trees even planted for that new community grid. Speculative real estate developers hear about the federal grants. They swoop in and buy up the cheap commercial spaces and housing units.
So they get in early.
Right. Because the land is suddenly deemed valuable again, local property taxes skyrocket. Landlords raise rents to match the new market rate, and the working-class families who endured the highway pollution for decades are quietly forced out because they can no longer afford to live there.
So if the original Ritterdens can't afford to stay in the new community grid, you've just displaced them all over again.
You really have.
You've replaced a physical concrete barrier with an invisible economic barrier that basically finishes the job the highway started.
This cycle is incredibly difficult to break. Let's go back to Portland for a moment. Modern urban renewal still struggles immensely with the legacy of the northeast neighborhood.
Yeah, tell me about that.
A few years ago, the Portland Development Commission tried to facilitate placing a Trader Joe's in that area.
Oh, I remember hearing about this.
For many in the African-American community, dropping a high-end grocery store into a historically Black neighborhood that had been systematically dismantled felt like a glaring signal.
Like a warning sign.
It felt like history repeating itself, a sign that the neighborhood was being prepared and polished for wealthier, whiter residents.
And the current struggle with Portland's highway infrastructure is incredibly tense right now, too. The Oregon Department of Transportation, or ODOT, proposed the I-5 Rose Quarter Improvement Project.
Yes, and that project faced massive organized backlash. Community organizations, specifically Black-led trusts focused on neighborhood vision, withdrew their support entirely.
Wow.
They did this because ODOT refused to commit to building robust protective caps over the highway.
Wait, what exactly does a highway cap do in this scenario? Just for those who might not know.
A highway cap is essentially a massive deck built directly over the recessed freeway.
Oh, like a lid.
Exactly, like a lid.
Mm-hmm.
It covers the highway entirely, allowing cities to put parks, affordable housing, or commercial buildings right on top of the traffic.
That sounds amazing, actually.
It literally stitches the broken neighborhood back together. But because ODOT wouldn't firmly commit to funding these caps, they lost the support of the community leaders, and eventually, even the mayor withdrew his support.
Good for them for holding the line. It proves that you cannot undo 60 years of environmental racism simply by tearing up some asphalt or tweaking an off-ramp,
Precisely. True justice in urban planning requires a fundamental transfer of power.
Yes.
You have to give the community legal and economic authority over future developments. That means instituting community land trusts, where the neighborhood collective actually owns the land rather than outside developers.
That's huge.
It means robust rent protections and property tax freezes for legacy residents so families aren't priced out of their own revitalization. Without those structural legal protections in place, removing a highway is just clearing the way for modern gentrification.
But we have covered a lot of heavy ground today. I mean, a lot. But as we wrap up, what really stands out to me is the sheer undeniable resilience of our communities.
Absolutely.
Despite decades of redlining, despite political maps drawn specifically to exclude us, despite the government literally paving over our living rooms, these communities have continually found ways to rebuild and assert their humanity.
It is a profound legacy of survival. Black communities have consistently advocated for their rights, demanded a seat at the planning table, and refused to be erased from the American landscape, even when the full weight of federal infrastructure was leveraged against them.
They truly have. And, well, that brings us to the end of our journey today. But I want to leave you with one final lingering thought to mull over. Next time you are driving down a massive, convenient stretch of interstate, or you're walking past a sprawling medical complex, take a moment to look at the side streets branching off into the distance. Ask yourself, whose living room was here before this pavement? And what modern conveniences are we enjoying today that are currently built on the silent displacement of someone else?